I see an offense that's running the football well. It's a very conservative pass game. Lots of screens, all kind of screens. It's like a defensive guy's calling offense. It's how a defensive guy will call offensive plays, right?
On WEEI.
I mean, that might be the quote of the year in the NFL, right?
Yeah.
Well, from an assistant.
You have to include the laughter in there, and he's getting the media members to laugh. They're laughing at the Patriots offense, which it has been a joke, so it's fair, right? It's not out of nowhere.
And that was not a like a TV laugh track either.
No.
That was people in the room being like, I can't believe he said it.
Yeah, it's terrible. We've seen it. 12 weeks of this.
Oh, my God. Yeah, at the end there, you heard Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator of the Arizona Cardinals, basically laughing at the play calling. I mean, that is, and in particular, like what Vance Joseph said is really about Matt Patricia.
It is 100% about Matt Patricia, and he's like, it's a defensive guy. He starts laughing. He's like, run the ball. Because I think he was starting to explain what it is, and then he's like, well, I'll just tell you exactly what it is, right? Because he's like, run the ball, conservative, a lot of screens, maybe take a chance, that kind of thing. And then he's like, it's like a defensive guy. And then that got everybody laughing. And then he doubles down with it later on, like a defensive guy calling plays.
Do you think Vance Joseph, I don't know how forthright he is in terms of schematics and things like that, but did even Vance Joseph be like, even these idiots can figure out what in the world's going on with the Patriots offense?
Yeah, right, because it's not like he's coaching this great defense by any means. He has a couple of great players.
Right.
Budda Baker, Watt's still really good. So he's got players, but they're nothing special. They've lost a ton of games this year. They're not a very good team all around, let alone on defense. But he's echoing what so many analysts have said. We just now have a D coordinator saying it.
Yeah.
It's an easy team to prepare against. There's nothing about it. Now, in previous years, now this is with Tom Brady, so they wouldn't have said that, but if there was anything that critical about the Patriots, they would go out there and torch them. The Patriots would crush a team for saying something like that. But now, what does bulletin board material really do? What if they put that quote in there in the locker room? Okay. Mac Jones would be like, where's he wrong? Mac Jones would probably get fired up about it. Like, yeah, the guy's right. He's kind of diagnosed. He's like, that's what I was yelling at you on the sideline about. The quick game sucks. It's going to be all quick game coming up.
So they put like the newspaper clipping in there and they put it in Matt Patricia's locker as well. And whatever's left of Matt's sandwich, he just crumbles it up in there and throws it all away.
But doesn't it? And this doesn't come as a surprise, but sort of like the fear that other teams used to be in of the Patriots is so long gone. It's Belichick on the sideline, and that's it. It's just, even last year squeaking out a playoff, you saw how the season ended. You saw what happened against the Bills twice. It's like there isn't that aura at all around them. And so I think coaches, players, they probably feel like, you can say something about the Pats now, whatever. They're another team. There's 20 of them like it in the league where they're like right above, right at, or right below 500. Right? Like, they're not great. They're
especially
not
with this offense. Like Cliff Kingsbury won't be like,
trash the defense. No,
he would never trash the defense. Because, again, the defense is, statistically, they're very good. But, offensively, you have no reason to fear anymore. I mean, God, I remember, I think it might have been like 05 or 06, Seattle came into Gillette and just wilted in the second half. I mean, completely.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was an interception that might have gone the other way. And then after that, it was like, here came the crowd, and then there was Tom Brady, and here's another touchdown, and Seattle just looked around, and this was pre-Legion of Boom.
Yeah.
And they were just, this would have been Matt Hasselbeck.
Okay.
Seahawks, and they just can't. We've seen teams over the years just wilt in Gillette Stadium, and you're right, now it feels like that is gone. What do you make of the Albert Breer report that not only Bill O'Brien would be okay coming back as the OC, but thinks that he might be the future guy here in New England? And we've talked about the whole Robert Kraft to Jonathan Kraft transition. Any sort of correlation there?
I am a little surprised that he would be the next guy. Now, again, you just can't give him player control. We just spent an hour of the show saying how great DeAndre Hopkins is. Mm-hmm. Bill O'Brien's the guy that traded him for a second-round pick.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't want that guy running the player personnel. The only thing I really want him doing is being an offensive coordinator. He has had some, hits and misses as a head coach, right? He's closer to a success than any of the other guys under Bill. Maybe Flores is up there too, but everybody else is just kind of bottomed out. If he ends up coming as the offensive coordinator next season, I would view this as even more of a lost season. Like, how the hell did you not get him this year?
Right, try to lure him away.
And Mac Jones is like, all right, now you have a competent offensive coordinator, but now I'm in year 3, and I just had this wasted season. Because if the reports last year were true that, hey, he's going to be the offensive coordinator, but then they're afraid he's going to bolt away, unless they told him for sure, which I don't think they would do, you're for sure going to take over for Bill?
No.
And then even Bill, does Bill know when his last year is? I think Bill's kind of like Brady at this point, where he's like, I'm not in any rush to leave.
Well, maybe, and let me just try to throw the other side of this. Maybe there is a part of Bill O'Brien that might be okay with that, because as the offensive coordinator, and if there is someone in ownership who says, hey, this guy is worth grooming. If Matt Patricia was that guy, that has gone kaput after this year, I think, with how poorly the offense has been run, right? Yeah. And let's say Bill O'Brien does walk in here and he's thinking, I'll be the OC, I'll turn this thing around, feel better about Mac. Okay, here we go. Might there be something to the letting Bill O'Brien in so that he can learn at least the ways of Belichick? And while it is not the end-all, be-all, I'm one of those who has argued that Bill Belichick's, as much as he has had a coaching imprint in terms of roster management, and you listen to guys like Bill Polian and people like that, there are those who have watched what Bill Belichick has done, and he's done it differently as much as it's pissed everybody off, and it's been able to work. So is there anything to having Bill O'Brien in the room to where he's actually dealing with Elliott Wolf and actually being around someone who wouldn't look at DeAndre Hopkins and say, no, we need to trade this guy?
Yeah, I know. I guess all that, people can change in that sense. But I also look at it where sort of the trend in head coaches in the league, at least a lot of them, seem to be that young upstart with a really bright future, right? Sean McVay wins the Super Bowl, but now look at Mike McDaniel. Kevin O'Connell's winning a bunch of games. I guess you could make the argument against Cliff Kingsbury now, but still, I kind of like that more than going from Bill Belichick, who knows how old he's going to be in his last year.
That's true.
To then turning it over to Bill O'Brien, who's also going to be a little bit more advanced. I kind of want the guy that connects with the player at this point at a different level. Like Bill is such a unicorn, I think, whereas the next guy, I might go opposite.
Well, here's the thing. It depends on how it ends with Bill.
Yeah, true.
If it is 9-8 the next couple of years, like these years have been, where you're just sort of middling and maybe you make the playoffs and you don't, but Bill gets his record and then he decides to exit, then I do think that. But think about it. If you bring in, first of all, if you brought in Bill O'Brien to be the offensive coordinator, a lot of us can say, praise Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, thank God, somebody who knows what they're doing in terms of that role. But if then they turn into a 12-5 team and it validates more of the Belichick way, it could turn into, for those like you maybe, who would want to really rip the Band-Aid off and kind of go with something different. So there is the...
Yeah, do you just hand that off to him?
Well, that's the thing, right? Don't you...
No, I think that's a good point. Like, does Bill leave on a high note? Like, I'm not saying Super Bowl, but I'm saying, does he leave on a high note where, like, you got everything going in the right direction? Mac Jones looks like a franchise quarterback at that point. You've got his win record or whatever, and he's handed it off to the next guy? Or is it, you were 7-10 again, and you missed the playoffs?
And that's where it might be.
Then I for sure want to start all over.
Then you rip the Band-Aid off, and you bring. But then the owners are in a position to do something that they have not had to do in over 20 years. Identify the next guy.
Tough. Yeah, because you see teams. Hell, just look at your own division. How difficult it's been for these teams to find their guy. Maybe they all have him now. Like, maybe it finally took to now. Don't you think, like, McDermott, McDaniel, and like maybe Saleh, like, they at least are trending in the right direction compared to some of the boobs they all had?
Oh, listen,
the Jets coaches, the Bills coaches were comical.
But what you also brought up is the danger of it. If you really worry about the attrition of the fan base, if there are people now that are of the, well, I'm getting ready to give up my season tickets kind of thing, right? That's because, think about it. For as much as, and we even had the caller to be like, you got to punt on Bill. Listen.
That's not happening this year.
And he's not Matt Rule. Like, this thing has not, it's not fallen off it's fallen off a cliff from all of us just being able to be like, well, I could check you in January if I really want to.
Well,
it's much, but it's not, this isn't a 3-win team that is completely tanking. That said, You got to balance the how you want to handle what's next, because what would be more damaging? Like leaving Bill in and being 9-8 for the next couple of years, or going to a young guy and then you got 4 wins, 5 wins. How impatient will people be around here if you were in a Jet scenario like Saleh?
They'll definitely lose their minds. And I think the 6 Super Bowls shouldn't give you a job for life, right? Like you can't just, because Bill would say the same thing about a player.
No doubt.
Oh, this player won a bunch of Super Bowls, but what is he now? And what is he next year? What is he the year after that? So you kind of have to look at it the same way. But with the coach, he's also in charge of player personnel. He's, filling out the entire staff, all the responsibilities he has. He shouldn't have a job for life, like the old sacred cow thing, right? Like he shouldn't have a job for life. But you get more than 1 or 2 bad seasons. Like you got to kind of figure out where you're going from here. And then if you're Robert Kraft and Jonathan Kraft, it's that idea of, all right, who would be the next guy? And really, next guys, because he does so much
that's
that
a good point.
You're replacing him with so many different people.
Elliot Wolf right now needs to be cultivated to essentially, in a way, maybe be the consigliere to Robert and Jonathan, and I would say maybe much more Jonathan, considering we're talking about the whole moving forward.
Yeah.
And even then, do you trust then that guy to look and evaluate and say, if we're going to go outside the organization and really go oppo and really go different, then you're trusting a very small group of people to figure that out. And it only takes one getting it wrong.
Oh, yeah.
To put you in a 3-year window where you have become the early 90s Patriots.
What a dark time. Many of us have tried to forget and
That's
move on
true.
from that, but that was something.
7-year-old Rich Keefe, 8-year-old Rich Keefe.
Screaming.
Those rough times back then.
1 win, 2 wins.
They're really rough. Stu in Maine with Gresh and Keefe. Hello, Stu.
Hey there.
Hi. What do you got, Stu?
You there?
Are you?
I'm here.
Yep.
Hi.
I had a hypothetical for you on the Arizona game.
Love it.
Hello.
If it's halftime and the Pats are down 17-0, Max thrown an INT, you think Zappe starts the second half?
I don't think so. A few weeks ago, I would have said yes, but I feel like they've just made the move back to Mac Jones. That quarterback controversy has subsided, even though you might get a few chance during the home games. This game's on the road, so you won't get any of those chance, but it seems like they're just going to kind of sink or swim with Mac the rest of the way. At least that's how I feel about it.
So I think the same thing, too. This is where Bill, to me, this is the Bill call.
Yeah.
It's we're going to make him grind. We're going to make him earn it. We're going to put him through the fire, that kind of thing.
It is a little surprising to me, though, where, Mac Jones, and really the whole offense, as we know, can look really bad, and he's still going to get the chances. Whereas Bailey Zappe only looked bad second half of the Bears game, and it's like, you're done. It's like, well, wait a minute. What about the Lions and the Packers, or the Packers, Lions, and Browns game? Like, you look pretty good there, but it just really feels like that is just done.
Well, I also think, too, that maybe there was a little bit of the second half of that final game with Zappe where they opened it up and went to shotgun, which, again, is really what they've done overwhelmingly with Mac Jones this year. And it was, okay, well, then let's not run. It's funny. I think there was the quote-unquote Zappe stuff, and then there was the, okay, Matt, run what you run with Mac and see what happened. And it was we saw enough to be able to not go back to it. But you know what? That also really convoluted the offensive discussions this year. And I'm not saying it set the offense back, don't get me wrong.
No.
But we've now finally gotten to the point and landed on, now a defensive coordinator on another team is laughing at your OC.
Yeah.
Like that really is on Patricia. It took us a little bit to get there because there have been flashes, but now there's no question. It's an abject disaster with Matt Patricia.
And that part's not surprising. The surprising part is for about a month, there was a quarterback controversy. Like there was calls on both sides for the quarterback, which you didn't expect to happen, and yet it has gone away, and it's not like there's been this great performance by the offense since. But again, to answer the caller's question, I think it's unless he gets hurt again, it's going to be Mac Jones the final 5 games.